Hey guys, welcome to my channel for chronic illness. Today's topic is going to be finding a good doctor. It's not easy. A lot of you who are sick know what I'm talking about. So let's jump right into it. I've been sick for a lot of years. I've seen a lot of different doctors over the years, and some not so good and some good. So over time, I've learned to find better doctors, and I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to do that. Um, a lot of people who are sick with rarer conditions have trouble finding doctors in their state. And I'm in a lot of different groups on Facebook, and I'd probably help about 5 people a week find doctors in their area. They're just hard to find. They're there, but they're hard to find. So let's get into it. Everybody who's watching me has probably searched for a doctor on Google. Um, so I just want to talk to you about some Google searching basics. Google searches everywhere. So the key for Google is being really specific. A tip I learned back in college was that if you do a search and you put quotations around certain words, you'll get better search results. Another thing you could do is use the word and. So connect different words together with the word and. Um, so, the first thing I recommend to find a good doctor, if you already know the chronic illness that you have, is to look up the different foundations for your chronic illness in your state, in your country. So, you just simply type your illness in and type in the word foundation or association into Google, and you go to your foundation. But the key is on your foundation's website, the first thing I recommend is go straight to the About Us part and look up who the Medical Advisory Board is. So this is an example of the Lupus Foundation. You can see Medical Scientific Advisory Council. Click into that. It'll bring you to another page that has all these other links that are all linked to MDs. And as you could see, it lists what hospital they're from and what state they're in. If you find one that's in your state, done deal. Go to that one. That guy is going to be or girl is going to be doing research and is at the top of their field, especially if your foundation's been around for more than 5 years. Another thing to do is see if your foundation has a physician's list. That's like the coolest thing. I love when foundations have physician's lists. It makes our job so much easier. Okay, so this here is the Pulmonary Hypertension Association, and you can see they have a link to PH specialists, to a directory. They actually have a video there. You can choose by state or country, and then you'll get a list of all the doctors where you live. Here's another example. This is the Guillain-Barré CIDP Foundation. They have a Centers of Excellence list. Takes you to a Centers of Excellence page. You click on it, and you actually see hospitals that have doctors who treat Guillain-Barré. Sometimes foundations don't want to get into that because of the legality of recommending a doctor. In which case, what you could do is call the foundation up. Ask them for recommendations over the phone. Sometimes they'll tell you over the phone. If they won't even do that, ask them for the local branch of the foundation. Those groups are way more involved in their local doctors, and they will recommend doctors for you. Or you could go to group meetings or participate in local forums or Facebook groups, and you can ask which doctors they use, and people usually, will recommend you good doctors. That's a great way to find doctors. Another secret is just use the search box in the foundation website and search your state. Just put in the name of your state, and hopefully you'll find your state mentioned with a doctor. That's a pretty good thing to try. What else? Okay, let's go back to Google for a second. So you Googled the foundation, you did all those steps that I just described, and you still can't find a doctor. Or you don't know your illness. So what do? So first thing is you go back to Google. If you do know your illness, you put in your illness and the state. And I'll get to if you don't know your illness later. So the first thing you do is you put in your illness and the state you live in, put quotation marks around each, and put "and" in the middle. You don't have to put quotation marks around "and." So let's call it diabetes, and then search. So that's going to reduce down a lot of the list. But the problem is, there's a lot of marketing and junk out there, and that's a ultra general search. And you're just kind of closing your eyes and throwing a dart at the dartboard. Maybe we're going to hit something. The key there is looking at the website URL. You don't want a general medicine type of website. You're looking for teaching hospitals. You're looking for just like real physicians, not marketing gimmicks or things that they look like, a medical website, but they're very general. They have nothing to do with your state. We're looking for stuff in your state. Okay? So the best part would be is if you type in the name of your illness and you type in center or institution. So diabetes center and then and New York. That would be cool. So when you're doing searches, whether it's Google or some of the other ones I'm going to recommend, you're going to want to try a lot of different adjectives, a lot of different things for the same exact term. Even for doctors, you have doctors, MD, medical doctor, physician. So you're going to want to think about that when you're searching and just repeat a lot of searches with the different adjectives. Okay, so after we do Google, let's move on to an even deeper way to search. So now we searched Google, we searched the foundation. Another thing would be to look for the journal that has to do with your illness. So let's take diabetes again. You're going to want to look up journals that have to do with diabetes. Or diabetic journals, diabetic medical magazines, diabetic, Okay, so I did that search and I found the American Diabetes Association and the medical journal Diabetes. There's an editorial board, so that's a good source. And also I started clicking into the articles, and this was an article, and author affiliations actually minimized, and I clicked that, and then I could see that this was an NIH study in Maryland, and I could see all the doctors, Judith Friedkin and Julie Wallace and so on and so forth, and I can look those doctors up. Located. So once you find a journal, you go again, you look for a search box, and you put in your state. And you use abbreviations of the state, so NY for New York, and you use full New York in quotations again. So hopefully that'll pick something up. There'll be like a little notation of where this study was done. And it'll be like, if it's New York, it'll be like, Albany, New York, but it'll say the comma NY, and bingo, that study was done in New York. And now we found a doctor who's actually doing research on diabetes in New York. So that's one avenue. Some of those researchers don't even see patients. So that's a long shot. Even further long shot than looking in a journal is looking on PubMed. PubMed is like this huge listing of all research and from all over the world. So in that same case, think of that as like a giant journal of everything medical that you can ever imagine. But you could search in there, same way we did in the journal, and again, put in diabetes and New York, or lupus and California, or breast cancer and Colorado, whatever. Use quotations, use and. It's the same type of searching. And again, you're looking for studies in your state. It could take a little while to go through, and you want to make sure everything is matching up to the type of search. Just go through like maybe like 50. And if you don't find what you're looking for, okay. Now, but I'm talking for, that's an idea for people who are so desperate and they're not getting anywhere, and they know what they have, and they're just like, I can't find any doctors in my state. Foundation doesn't know any doctors. That's kind of a desperate thing to do, but it's just an idea if you really, want to dig deep. Okay, so now let's talk about, you don't know what you have. You need a good doctor to help you figure out what you have. Or you know what you have, you know the illness, and you want to find a doctor yourself, just locally. So how do we know that it's a good doctor? Obviously, the beginning, I mentioned the foundations and talking to the groups, because the best way to find a great doctor is being referred by a patient, not a doctor, but a patient who actually used that doctor for something similar to what you have. So if it's a surgery and you know you're going to need a surgery for something, that person's actually been through a surgery that's similar and they had good results. That's a great find. That's a great referral. If you can get a doctor from a family member or a friend or somebody who's actually been through that that's the best way. Otherwise, it's still good just for general doctors. Oh, my mother says this doctor's good. A friend of a friend says this doctor's good. That sometimes works. But what if you have nobody that knows what type of doctor you need? You have an autoimmune illness, and you have a specific autoimmune illness, and nobody you know, your family or friends, they don't have that autoimmune illness. So how can they recommend somebody? So you did the other methods that I mentioned. Now you know that rheumatologists deal in autoimmune illness. So you're just looking for a good rheumatologist to diagnose you or to treat you. So I number one recommend that if you know what your illness is, that you try to use a doctor that mainly specializes in your illness. Mainly specializes in your illness. For example, there's endocrinologists that cover a variety of hormonal illnesses. So you can have one that specializes in diabetes, and that has to do with, the insulin hormones secreted from your pancreas. So, but yeah, they could deal with thyroid problems and low testosterone, low estrogen, a lot of different things. But there's some that really study diabetes, and that's their area of focus. It takes 6 months to get to see them. They only see mainly diabetes people. That's kind of what you want to do. You want to find somebody who specializes in your illness. That's really important, especially for getting diagnosed, but also to create a treatment plan. Later on, after you find out what to do, you could get a general rheumatologist or endocrinologist locally who can continue to do what that main doctor, what plan that other doctor advised. So anyway, so now what are you going to do? You know you need a specific type of doctor. Endocrinologist, rheumatologist, cardiologist, neurologist, whatever. And so you're looking locally at the lists, whether through your insurance company, whether through wherever. So where I recommend you start out for that type of search is a website called Castle and Conley. They actually rank top-rated doctors in each state. So you'll hear, like in your, you'll see in your doctor's offices plaques on the wall that will say, I'm a top doctor for 2000, 2010, 2015, so on and so forth. That's Castle Conley's ranking that they're showing in there. And sometimes newspapers and magazines actually license Castle Conley's rating system and kind of pawn it off as their own. So you might not even realize that it's Castle Conley rating that. So that's a good place to start, finding good doctors, and you can look by specialists. I'll put a link below to Castle Conley, so you can go there and check that out. Another website is U.S. News and World Report. What I usually do here is I go and find the top hospital in a certain specialty, and then you can look at the doctors who are at that hospital. I think that they also use Castle Conley and maybe some other one for their ratings, but that's a good one because both of these, what we're looking for also on top of the ratings are the doctor's background. It's really important that if you don't know the doctor, you don't have experience with the doctor ever before, you don't know anybody who's ever used them, that you find a doctor who's very experienced. A doctor is only as good as their experience and their education. So what I do for myself is I know I need a certain doctor. I look at those lists I told you about, and then I open up to see where did that doctor go to medical school? Where did that doctor get their internship, what hospital did they go to for their internship, their fellowship, for their residency, and their fellowship? Because the better medical school they went to, the smarter they had to be to get in there. Let's face it. Two, that medical school has better equipment to train on. And then when it comes to the internship, residency, and fellowship, if they go to bigger, better hospitals, again, the same thing. You're going to have better equipment to train with. You're going to have better other doctors to learn from. And those hospitals are trafficked a lot. They get thousands of people, like big hospitals like the Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, Columbia University, Stanford. All these, I could go on. There's an elite group of hospitals. And it's really awesome if a doctor went to like Harvard Medical School, then they trained at University of Pennsylvania, and then they for their internship, and then they went to Yale Medical for their residency, and then they went back to Harvard Medical for their fellowship. Now, fellowship is key because a fellowship, at that point, the doctor goes, I think I want to have my future medical practice focus on this one specialty. And how amazing is that doctor after they decide, I want to be this type of specialist, and they train at one of the top specialty hospitals for that particular specialty. So that's just a great thing. That's awesome to have that you're going to a doctor who is smart, who has been trained at one of the top hospitals, and they're local. So you get all that all that experience right by you without having to go to one of those top hospitals yourself. I can't tell you how many times I was fortunate to find doctors like that, who trained on some of the top equipment. They knew all these tests that other doctors didn't know. So that's really important. And so you definitely, I think, have to check on a doctor's background. That's not to say a doctor can go to a lower medical school, absolutely, and train at a community college, community hospitals, and they've been around so long, let's say 30 years, they've seen everything, and through that experience, they have a tremendous amount of experience. Anybody who's in any field, the longer experience they have, the more they're going to see stuff, the more they're going to learn tricks, the more they're going to know how to diagnose things, problems. So, there's some great doctors out there who didn't have Ivy League medical training and didn't go to big hospitals. Definitely. But those doctors I prefer to get referrals to. Speaking of referrals, so you have nobody that knows this doctor. You only know they have a great background, like I said. So what's the next step? So the last step in this equation is that you go to a place where people are talking about doctors. So there's ratemds.com. I believe, like sites like ZocDoc and Vitals and, Healthline, like places where they list doctors are having more and more ratings of doctors from patients. That's what we want. We want to hear how that doctor's treating other patients. Lastly, I recommend going to forums and Facebook groups and mentioning a doctor. Has anybody seen so and so? Is anybody from this state do they know this doctor? Okay, so if you liked my video, please give me a thumbs up. My future videos are going to be about how to be prepared for doctor visits, how to talk to doctors to get them to cooperate, how to research treatments, and how to find out what testing you need and ask for testing and things along that line. Please, before you leave, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks.